Hello and welcome to day 5 of the Beer Jerk Advent Calendar. He's Luke.
And he's Matt.
And we are here drinking another exclusive beer for the Advent Calendar from Bright Brewing over in Australia.
Yeah. Bright are in the town of Bright, which is up in the mountains.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Queenstown of Victoria, so it's kind of that all-round holiday town where they've got skiing in the winter and a lake for the summer, lots of hiking and trails and mountains and beautiful foliage and stuff like that. It's supposed to be a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And this is a really cool brewery. They're a brewery that kind of took us by surprise by contacting us out of the blue a couple of years ago now and sending us a bunch of samples, and we just ended up really impressed with everything they sent, from their core range kind of bulk standard beers and through to some of their more experimental stuff, their Imperial Stout, and so we've been bringing them in for a couple of years now.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, I think similar to a lot of breweries, really, that a brewery starts out as a, it might be quite small, might be a brew pub, and they're, I suppose the beers that they brew are just kind of, not cookie cutter, but, well, yeah, I suppose cookie cutter, that breweries just start out and they brew a Pilsner, a Pale Ale, an IPA, a Stout, and it's not really super exciting if you haven't actually tried the beers, and then you try them and it's like, wow, this is something different, but so I suppose we've been aware of Bright for a few years before we drank any of their beers. And then when they got in touch with us, they were doing these beers, but also a lot of really interesting seasonals and some interesting like historic beer styles and beers with interesting adjuncts. And
yeah,
it was
we had a Mandarin Milkshake Pale Ale as beer of the week, which was pretty controversial. And they do an ongoing series of Russian Imperial Stouts, one of which we just had on tap here at the Fridge and Flagon a while ago, which went down really well.
That stout really wowed me when they sent that through. That was like, okay, these guys are doing some bloody great stuff in Bright, a town I'd never even heard of before I had their beers.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is a Vienna lager. And is it weird to have a favourite malt? I have a favourite malt.
I don't think it's weird to have a favourite malt, yeah.
Yeah, Vienna is my favourite malt. It's kind of one of the hidden secrets that with a lot of the small
giving away all of your secrets, Matt. It's lucky we only have 130 subscribers, so not many people will ever see them.
Yeah, but I tend to use Vienna in most of the recipes that I come up with for brewing at home and with Small Gods, our little bit brewing arm, and I think it's delicious. And this is a great example of what that malt tastes like, because a Vienna lager is a lager brewed with Vienna as the base malt, which has just this really nice, rounded, nutty, kind of light caramelly character that doesn't come off too sweet, but it's got some really nice flavour to it. And it's a really nice way to build up at that base profile of a lager to something a little sweeter.
Yeah, Austria doesn't get spoken about that much when people are talking about interesting beers and history, and people always go to the interesting German styles, which I'm crazy about, interesting Belgian styles.
And even the Czechs with their Pilsner.
Yeah, people are talking about, Gryzicki in Poland, and obviously England, and there's a lot of rich history throughout every European country, really. But Austria somehow gets a bit forgotten about by a lot of people chatting about beer, but it has such a rich history of great beers. And Austria were a huge exporter of beer, so all over Europe. But before the First World War, really, they were a massive exporter of beers and lagers to Britain. And it was only really sort of 1914 and the First World War that came along, and then that sort of put the kibosh on a lot of these Austrian and German beers coming into England, especially. But yeah, Austria, fantastic beer scene, just cranking out these great, delicious lagers and styles that people think of as a bit more sort of boring and traditional, a bit more sort of Reinheitsgebot beers, but yeah, a Vienna lager is a gorgeous style.
Yeah, I agree. It's my favourite lager style. I kind of got into craft beer and the whole craft beer scene initially years ago because I used to say I don't like lager. That kind of international pale lager, even kind of Czech Pilsner and Helles, they're not my favourite beers to drink. I'm not a big lager fan. I'm much more of an ale fan. I like pale ales, IPAs, and all the varieties that you get there from farmhouse ales. But Vienna lager is the main style of lager that actually really does it for me. Probably because of that malt base, where you've just got a little more sweetness, a little more character for that body and that yeast character to sit on. It's still got that noble hop character from a classic lager, but yeah, to me it just comes off a bit more rounded and it suits my palate a bit better.
Yeah, the maltiness gives it just that bit more interest, just makes it a little bit sort of biscuity and a bit more fuller bodied as well, which really makes a difference.
Yeah.
So it's not that really crisp, light bodied, thirst quenching lager that a lot of people do reach for in nice weather. It's definitely it's a lager made for the Austrian Alps, I suppose. It's a bit more interest to it, a bit more body.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to go on a little bit of a lager odyssey over the next few days, exploring a few different styles of lager, from the kind of classic ones that you're used to, your green bottles and your kind of standard lager that you would have seen everywhere, almost exclusively 10, 15 years ago, through to there's heaps of expression of lager as a style.
Are you teasing the Advent calendar drinkers that we've got Steinlager in the box tomorrow?
Oh yeah, green bottle, classic.
We do not have Heineken in the box tomorrow, don't worry.
Yeah, one of the interesting things, so taking it back right to the beginning, I guess, is one of the main differences between, the only difference between lagers and ales is the yeast that's used. So people often, outside of our little bubble of craft beer, think of lager as a style of beer, whereas actually it's more a method and it's a way of making beer. Because
I suppose it's a family of beers, I suppose. So all beers fall within ale or lager.
Yeah, and so lagers come from the German word meaning to store. It means that they're stored for a long period of time, and that's because they're also brewed a lot colder. So your standard ales are brewed at what you'd consider room temperature, 18 to 20 degrees, more or less is your standard ale temperatures. Some of your Belgians can get a little bit higher, but lagers are fermented more about 10, 11, 12 degrees. So they're often, traditionally, they were brewed during the winter and then stored for a long period of time through the autumn, through the spring, and then released in the summer. And so the summer drinking beers that are brewed in winter, and that lagering, that aging, is what gives them that kind of real kind of cleanliness, that real bright flavor profile that you get from them. And yeah, that's and this is just a way to make one that's a little different, but still has that cleanliness to it. Yeah,
so we'll probably get more into lager chat over the next couple of days with our little mini lager odyssey. And also, so ale yeast are all top fermenting and lager yeast are bottom fermenting. And there's things like a Baltic porter is a style of lager that you might not think about when you're drinking this really rich, dark 12% beer. And you get smoked lagers and just all kinds. As I say, it's kind of a family of beer styles, really.
Yeah, I'm probably going to put a stop to Luke there before he goes on a deep Rauch beer smoked lager rabbit hole.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no Rauch beer in there. Yeah, thank God.
But also, how cool is this can?
Beautiful design.
When we were unpacking everything for the Advent calendar and lining it all up, this is one of the ones that stunned me. It's just this beautiful abstract that kind of harks back to that kind of art style from Austria, Germany, and that part of the world. It's almost got a stained glass vibe. So it was just really nice on that printed can as well. So I loved that coming out of the box.
Yeah.
So this is actually one of the beers that, despite not being a lager fan, I was most looking forward to in the box. And yeah, it's delivered for me. It's exactly what a Vienna lager should be. Yep,
nailed it. Awesome work, Bryce. Thank you for providing us with a great beer for day 5.
Well, we're going to gradually lose count more and more as these videos go on. At some point, we're going to be, it's day, Advent calendar, something.
It's a good job we're not recording them all on the same day, otherwise this could get really messy.
Good. Well,
cheers, Matt.
Jax.
Cheers, everybody.